This episode of the Popture podcast was brought to you by our Patreon. If you want to tell us which films we should watch, get up to 2 extra exclusive podcasts a month, give us something to talk about in the post-credit scenes at the end of each episode, or even contribute to the discussion in the episode itself, then please consider joining the cult and donating at www.patreon.com/cultpopture.
Hello, and I don't have to do a sync clap or anything, but hello and welcome to a very unusual episode of the Cult Popture podcast. I'm your host, Richard, and I'm your only host this episode, and it is just now setting in how it is only me. I'm going to have to talk constantly for the next, no idea how long this episode's going to be, so strap in. If you're not a fan of mine, you may want to hold on till the next episode. If you're a big fan of AJ's and you're wondering where he is, he's very sick at the moment. He's got a mystery illness. He thinks it's not COVID, but we'll see. Sometimes these things take a while to show up. But yes, I'm taking over just as myself. It feels very weird, and I'm going to put headphones in just because it feels weird to be talking without them, even though I don't need to hear AJ on the other side of the call. There's a few other things I need to be aware of. Obviously, recording this episode, I tend to say a lot when it's not going anywhere. I've tried to cut back in the last season, but I'm also I tend to talk really fast if I'm the only person talking. See, now that I've got headphones in, I've got like little earbuds in, and they're blocking out just certain frequencies, and this is how I'm comfortable hearing my voice for long periods of time. But yeah, so AJ's saying, but also, I thought I could rope in Jess or Jeremy or someone into this episode. But Jess actually has COVID as well, and it's been very hard for the last week, and we wish her all the best here at the Cult Popture podcast. But unfortunately, I do live with Jess. No, it's not unfortunate most of the time. It's only unfortunate when I risk joining the millions and millions of people afflicted with COVID over the last 2 years. But it's Saturday night currently, and I'm getting that that little tickle you get in the back of your throat when you're like, I'm going to be sick tomorrow. So I have that at the moment. So it is funny that I'm filling in because AJ is too sick to record, and I may have COVID at time of recording. I would put $10 on the fact that within the next 5 days, I'm going to test positive for COVID. Although I also got really sick when I got back from China earlier in the year, and but I never tested positive, so it may have not been COVID, or I may just be really bad at doing the rapid antigen tests. So yeah, what is this episode? You're listening to me blather on. I haven't told you what the bloody episode is yet, and you're going to be listening to me blather on for a lot, because that is the entire episode. So what I'm doing, and this is something that I've joked about with AJ for a long time, that if there was ever, for any reason, he wouldn't be able to record, I would do like an Ask Richard podcast, and not I'm not talking about like an I am Richard Martin the podcaster AMA. This is, no, you bring me your problems, and I like an advice column. I'm not someone who's particularly renowned on the podcast for giving advice, I would say. Like it's not my thing. We're not an advice podcast. We're a fun movie podcast, and because of the fan base we have and the image we've created for ourselves here at the Cult Popture podcast, obviously a lot of these prompts, I'll call them, are going to be, or these questions where people have asked for advice, a lot of them are going to be silly. Some of them are going to be references to stuff, but then I think in there's going to be some real heart, and I think that's really the core of the Cult Popture podcast, is that it's a lot of heart. It's it's a bit of fun, but it's got that heart at the core. I am trying some new drinks tonight. I've been. Some of you may know that Ireland is here. The Irish rugby team is here in New Zealand. They're playing the All Blacks, and I was covering it for my job last weekend, and I went to a bunch of Irish pubs, and obviously there was Guinness was flowing freely, and I thought, you know what? I remember a time in my life where every 6 months to 2 years I would try Guinness, and I would say, let's try, see if I like Guinness again. And I thought, you know what? I haven't done this in ages, so I'm gonna get a Guinness sometime this week. And I thought, you know what better time to do it than for this podcast. I don't have a Guinness with me. I couldn't find one that was only in a 1-pack, or like just a single standalone beer. What I was after was that I didn't want to buy a 6-pack, and they sold them as 6-packs. They were like $27, and so I thought, you know what, I'm going to try something else. So what I've got is number 8 wired double scoop stout, which is supposedly baklava flavored. It's interesting because stout is such a dark beer, but it's always like super sweet. Like I've had like ice cream stouts, and there's a really nice cereal milk stout, but generally not a fan of stouts. You can probably get that crack open there. So I'll try a little bit of this, and then I'll give you my review. It's actually quite nice. Stout's a weird beer. It's like the dark chocolate of beers, but because you can get these really complex flavors, but then you also have just this like almost molasses kind of really dark, rich sugar to it. But yeah, no, I would recommend number 8 wide baklava stout. But the other drink, I'll try to. I'm sure AJ's still going to cut the episode. Hi AJ, if you're listening, hope you get well soon. And I'm sure he'll cut out all my gross drinking noises. But the other thing that I'm going to be drinking, maybe not just yet, but I'll try a little bit once we get into some of the more serious questions. I bought some mead, MEAD mead, something that it's similar to like moonshine. I think I've always just sort of thought it was like one of those catch-all terms for like a kind of alcohol that you don't really get anymore. But no, it's a honey wine. I might be really showing, you know, my idiocy when it comes to my lack of knowledge when it comes to alcohol, but it's the first time I've ever actually seen mead in the supermarket. It caught my eye, and I thought, you know, I'm going to try some mead on the podcast. So yeah, once I get into my dark stout a little bit, my double scoop stout, baklava, I might crack up some mead, which I've chilled. I'm not sure if you're supposed to chill mead, but it said on the internet, it said you can do whatever. I also got good old water water, as our American fans might say. So I went along to the Discord. I made a channel called #AskRichard. The hashtag is just how Discord denotes what a channel is. It's been 7 minutes. I haven't answered the first question yet, so I'm feeling good about this episode's going to be longer than 20 minutes. So first question comes to us from Kieran from Popture, who asks, "Hi Rich." Oh my god, yes, I shouldn't have had those jokes. "Hi Richard, long time asker, first time listener. What's the key to a fat hog?" Now, I presume here Kieran's making a genitals reference. He's talking about a fat hog in the sense that, you know, a large penis, and really that's as far as I'm aware, there are no kind of, you know, what do you call it? There's no scientific basis for these, you know, the ads you see on porn sites that doctors hate them, increase the size of your fat hog in 3 weeks. But if you're looking to fatten up, you know, your kuni, which is a type of pig native to New Zealand, or whatever sort of other breeds of pig you might have, I think just feeding it, like anything else, feeding it. And that's not just a physical thing. If you want your emotions to feel stronger, you feed into them. And I'm sure that'll come up later on. But, you know, if you're feeling a lot of anger, the way that increases is by feeding your anger, and that's not always a good thing. Sometimes you need to let it out. But Karen also goes on to ask a second question, which is also, how can I find satisfaction in the everyday? And this is an interesting one because obviously this is something that a lot of people struggle with. It's something that I've struggled with myself. And I remember a very specific moment. I was walking home from the supermarket, and I was thinking about how I had a trip coming up or something like that. And I remember thinking like, oh God, I wish I could just get through these mundane moments of my life where, you know, I'm just walking home from the supermarket and I could, you know, like Adam Sandler in Click. There's a movie reference, so this is still a cult Popture podcast. But, you know, you could fast forward through all the mundane bits in your life and just get to the trip because up until that point, I guess I saw like, life is these series of like big holidays or like concerts, and most people like generally there's something you're kind of looking forward to. But then I had the moment that I was like, actually, and this is going to sound really pretentious, I'm going to sound pretentious a lot on this podcast probably, but that something like walking home from the supermarket is like, that is life. And going on a holiday or meeting your idol, those are the exceptions. Like, not everyone gets to do those. And I guess the answer is just to try to find satisfaction in those little moments. Try to find the beauty in things between the things you're excited for. I've always said I love the genre of movies which is just people hanging out. And I love Boyhood, Richard Linklater's Boyhood, and I describe that as a movie where it's life with all the interesting parts taken out. And yeah, I think that if life had no interesting parts, as we might call them, you'd still be left with this thing that you have to deal with for potentially 80 years or even more. And yeah, you just have to find a way. The other thing that I always find myself doing is I remember a specific moment in high school where I was talking to someone and they couldn't remember if something had happened in year 10 or 11, which is like fourth or fifth form. And I was and it's funny that I say this because I was in year 10 or 11 at the time. And I remember thinking it's so clear to me right now where I'm at in life. It's insane to me that I would one day forget this, that I would one day forget everything about my surroundings. And so every now and then I think back to that moment, which obviously I don't have like a picture perfect memory of anymore because I don't remember what year I was in at school. But you stop and you sort of take stock of your life and you file that away. It's like tricking your brain into putting something really mundane into your important bits folder and saying, and even sometimes I have to do this like when I'm on a trip and I'm in Japan and I'm on the subway and I'm on my way to Hiroshima, and I think, oh, when I get there, I'm gonna see the like whatever, but then it's like, no, actually, I should just enjoy, like, I'm seeing this countryside for the first time and possibly the only time in my life, and yeah, really just take stock of those things. Yeah, I guess try and take stock and try and trick your brain into putting mundane things in the important folder. Would be my advice to Karen. Tim R. Tabor, Watch Along Baron, has said, got an eldritch horror in my fridge calling itself Zool. Don't ask, long story involving a coconut, Pamela Anderson, and the Central American state of Guatemala. How do I deal with that? I'm going to quickly Google the word eldritch. It's one of those words that I kind of like, I see in context, and it's like, and I kind of know, I know if it's used in the right way or not, but I never actually know what it means. So, what defines eldritch? Weird and sinister or ghostly? Well, I think there's only one name you should call, and that is the Ghostbusters. I paused before the punchline because I was trying to think if it's funnier to say Ghostbusters or something else. And I paused after the punchline to take a sip of my delicious 8-wired double scoop stout. Hold the Molo has asked, how does one become a movie reviewer on the news? Now, this is a very interesting thing because in the last 3 months of my life, I've started to do this for our national news channel. And so it's a place I've worked at for 5 years. It's 5 years in 1 month. And the whole time I've been working there at Television New Zealand or TVNZ, I've been frustrated that we seem to be one of the only newsrooms in the world that doesn't have someone dedicated to entertainment, and seemingly no one really that interested in entertainment. And I'll sort of go through my history a little bit here to get to how I got to this point, because it does answer Hold the Molo's question. So I started in a position called news traffic, where I met Kieran, who I answered a question from earlier, and we worked together in that department for a wee while, and it's such a hard job to describe, and I always worried that it was this really non-transferable skill, but you're dealing with like all the incoming footage into the newsroom. You're dealing with, so that's like ingesting cards, but it's also setting up all those live crosses and things like that. And it's a very kind of technical role, like if you've done it right or not. and the other good thing about it was that you could just leave at the end of the day, and because the day's news is over, there's nothing, you don't take your work home with you, you know. And then after 2 years of that, I got to a point where I was like, I actually need this to be creatively satisfied in my work life. And I moved into another position, a video content producer, just a fancy name for editor. So I was editing the news, and I was sort of, and it's already a little bit more creative. A lot of it's very kind of stock standard, and there's patterns and formats to everything. But yeah, I did get to work on some of my own projects and stuff like that. So I did that for 18 months, and then at the end of 2019. End of 2020, start of 2021, I moved into a new role, and I say new role, not just for me, like for the company. This role was created, and there's only 2 people in that have this role, and it's called camera journalist. And a lot of there's the term video journalist, which is like a reporter who kind of shoots their own stuff. And it was kind of like that. Normally a video journalist is based outside of a main center, so they'll be in a small town somewhere in the North or South Island, and they'll film their own stories, and they cut this, so they do everything. It's quite it can be quite a rewarding job. And so the idea of the camera journalist, I think, was that it would be this role where you're doing that kind of thing, but it's more camera focused and more shooting for other people than it is doing your own stories. But there was always the option there. And my boss, one of the very first conversations I had with him about the role was, you've opened up a bunch of new paths, and you can make this role whatever you want it to be. You're the first person to ever have this job. You get to define what it is. And so after, sort of just, we had a very long lockdown last year, and I got, pretty fucking depressed during that, as has been well documented on this podcast. And I sort of just became like, look, I'm just going to be a fucking camera operator. I don't have time to bother doing my own things. And I mean, because of that, because I was just mainly focusing on camera, I got the opportunity to go to China early in the year. I was filming for the Winter Paralympics. And then I sort of got a little burnt out, and coming back, because it was that thing that I talked about earlier, that I had this trip, planned for so long, and then there was like all this shenanigans getting there. And then now that it was finally over, I had to really take stock of my life again and be like, okay, well, what do I actually want to do? And the thing that I really thought about is, have I been putting my dreams into the box of what I can achieve at this company? And what are my actual dreams? And this is like great advice for any job where you're not, sure. Is that like, think about what you would do if money was no object. You could literally, if you won the lottery, what would you be doing? And then you think about essentially on the current, like, a somewhat realistic career path, what could you be doing in 10 years that would actually make you happy? And then think about, okay, well, in the job you're at the moment, what's the best position you could hold? In a year's time, like not even that serious. And I was thinking about that, I realized that none of these goals matched up with each other. And I was like, I really got to the point where I was thinking about leaving, or sort of making an exit path for myself. And then one day I had seen an advanced screening of The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent starring Nicolas Cage. And that same day, or just the day after I'd seen it, it was just just one of these screenings. Sometimes they screen movies a week in advance to the public, and I wanted to see it, so I bought a ticket. And yeah, I at the same day, I spoke to people in the newsroom, and there's a lot of music buffs in the newsroom, especially one that was a close friend of mine who's now left, and so she was quite happy to sort of give over her music contacts. So I reached out to a bunch of them, said hey, keen to do stories with some musicians. I'd met this person before, so she was like, yeah, I remember you, that's awesome. Lined some stuff up, and then I thought, what can I do that's more kind of immediate? And I spoke to the person who was lining up the late news and said, have you heard about this Nicolas Cage movie? He's kind of a movie guy. I've spoken to him about movies before. And this was a guy who was filling in for the normal person. And yeah, I told him the plot of the movie, and I think it was this perfect storm. The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent was the perfect one to lead in with. And said, would you be interested on just a track about it? And, I can sort of add in my thoughts. And he said, what, fuck it. Yeah, let's try it. And I did it, and I had a few people come up to me and say, "Hey, I saw that thing you did on the late news last night. That was really cool. We should be doing more of that." And then when the person who was normally in charge of late news came back the following week, I said, "Hey, I did this thing last week. Let me know what you think of it." And she had a look. She thought it was great. She said, "Would you want to do another one?" And I said, "I will do one of these every single week if you will play them." And I've done that. I mean, I went on holiday for 1 week, but other than that, I've delivered one of these every single week. And now, the opportunities, like I had someone approach me wanting me to do a story about about the New Zealand International Film Festival coming up, and that was like, one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me. Someone saw my work and thought, I want that person. I need this person to do that, to help bring this to light. And so it is this weird thing where I've taken an incredibly long path to get to the stage I'm at the moment. And right now, I would say, honestly, like, I am the most creatively and like professionally fulfilled I have ever been in my career. And really, what it boils down to is that I just went and did it. Like, I obviously, like, I asked for permission to do this, but I waited my time, and I was just, you just have to be courteous. You have to. I established myself. People knew me as like the movie buff at work. And so, when I said, "Hey, I want to do this thing about a movie," they thought, well, Richard knows his shit. So, yeah, I mean, if you are genuinely wondering how to become a movie reviewer on the news, there are, there are look for like lifestyle and entertainment roles, because those are kind of open. Like, a lot of them tend to end up being like, they'll sell you something big and they'll end up being like a celebrity gossip column. But, if you can get into a role like that, even at a newspaper, or, well, not necessarily a newspaper, but like a print journalism place, that would really open you up. And it's about building those connections and trying to get on those lists for junkets and media screenings and movie premieres. So that is my life story. Vinny Redux says, "Hey Richard, I have a crush on this one girl, and I just want to confess my feelings to her. My only problem is that she's currently in a coma in a hospital after a traumatic experience. I know I should wait until she is discharged, but I can't. My feelings for her feel like they could burst at any moment. If I don't take matters into my own hands, I don't think anything will come from it. What should I do? Also, my dad is an asshole, but there isn't a character limit large enough to cover why. Sincerely, Twitchy in Tokyo 3. Now, I would say, I'm not sure what you should do. Well, before you do, you should wait for her to wake up from her coma before you do anything. And I can tell you what you shouldn't do, but I don't want to say it on the podcast. Evangelion fans out there, you guys know what he shouldn't do. And if you're not an Evangelion fan, put on End of Evangelion, watch the first minute of it, and you will see what you should not do when your attractive friend who you have a crush on is in a coma. It's what you think. So, yeah, don't do that. Skippy Williamson says, Hey Richard, I need help choosing what movies to watch. Maybe you could help. I have over 600 titles on my watch list. That's really impressive. That's movies wanting to watch for people who don't use Letterboxd. For reference, I've only seen approximately 1,000 plus films in my whole lifetime. Although I've been rapidly increasing my watching in recent years, it will still take years for me to get through them all. Here's a link to my watch list. I'll do that now. Do you think you could give me your top 5 recommendations from the list? If you can filter by what you've watched, I'd be curious to see how many there are. Perhaps try and pick at least a couple somewhat obscure titles. And as a bonus, I have a tradition of watching an epic feeling movie on New Year's Eve. And I'm wondering, if I'm a planner, I guess we're in the second half of the year now, what I should watch this year. Some previous examples are Infinity War, Reservoir Dogs, Fellowship of the Ring, and Shawshank Redemption. Let me know if any of your picks would fit the bill. It's interesting. Reservoir Dogs is an interesting one to have in that collection. That's like famously kind of small film, but I get what you mean, that it's like this epic introduce the world to Quentin Tarantino. It's probably still one of my favorite Tarantino films, although I will always defend that Inglourious Bastards is his best film by a country mile. So yeah, let's have a look at being closest watch list. I'm going to need to sign in so I can do sort by scene films. But yeah, 1,000 plus movies in your lifetime. That's impressive. I always feel self-conscious about how many films I've seen. But I think on when I go on Letterboxd, like I've seen, where are my stats? It's about 10 away from. Oh yeah, 1990. I've seen 1,991 films according to the Letterboxd. Some of those are short films. Some of them are episode of Black Mirror, things like that. But Yeah, fun stuff. And Letterboxd will not let me update my like Twitter handle that it's got logged in. It still says Richard Ravioli, and everyone knows I changed it to Richard Martin NZ because I'm trying to build my profile. Where is the fucking connections? Twitter. Okay, I guess I'll just disconnect my Twitter account. Sorry, Ben, I will get to your question, but people love to hear me just Google shit. Authorize app to use Twitter. Yes. Oh, that was easy. Okay, well, that thing I complained about, not very hard. Just disconnect and then reconnect. So, sorted by average rating. So let's, for Fade watched films, it's not giving me like a list of like, or telling me how many I have seen, but I can tell you on the first page I've seen maybe a third. And I'm going to see, actually, let's go sort by... Sort by my rating highest first. Okay, so I've seen one. Well, how many is on there? 7 by 4, so that's 28. On the first page. Okay, on this first page, I would definitely recommend. I would recommend binging the Rocky series. I see you've got Rocky and Creed on here. When I first watched the Rocky series, it was because I wanted to watch Creed. I'd heard such good things about Creed, and then I just fell in love with it. You've also, you've got some really good films on here, Ben. When Marnie Was There, I fucking love that film. It's a Studio Ghibli film. It was the first one before they went on a break, and I mean now they're back with Miyazaki's got another film, and then they did that 3D animated one, which I haven't seen. But yeah, When Marnie Was There, underrated film. 12 Angry Men is one of the greatest films ever made, and I stand by that. Big Fish, one of my favorite movies of all time. What else have we got? On to page 2, and so another 28 that I've seen. What do we got here? You haven't seen the Terminator. I mean, I haven't seen the Terminator for a long time either, but it's worth getting through Terminator just to see Terminator 2, because Terminator 2 fucking rocks. It's such a good film. What else have we got on here? 5 centimeters per second, really good film. Jackie, incredible performance from. It's one of those things. It's an all right film, but my god, Natalie Portman is incredible in that film, and it's one of those ones where you're like, that's kind of a weird voice. I'm starting to speed up. I can feel it. You're like, that's kind of a weird voice, and then you listen to Jackie Kennedy's real voice, and you're like, hot damn. All right, I'm gonna go through the pages. Oh, so now, so I've seen 28 plus 28 is 56 plus another 14. So what? It's 70 of your films. For some reason, okay, so yeah, what else is on here? And the Godfather trilogy is pretty important. Bicentennial Man, worth checking out, because the Sam Neill's character, who is a Kiwi, his name in that film is Richard Martin, which I've always found fun. Now, looking through this for what could be your epic film to enter New Year, so I've given you roughly 5 picks, I think. I would say, dude, go Fright Night. Fright Night 2011, man. What a sick film. That's freaking sick. And like, if you are genuinely looking for like, an epic New Year's film, I see you've got the Godfather trilogy on here, and that would be great. And also, yeah, Scream as well. I didn't see before, but well documented. That's one of my favorite films. Now, but yeah, the Godfather trilogy could be one to do. That weird week between Christmas and New Year's, where it feels like time and days of the week mean nothing. Maybe you could do the Godfather trilogy then, unless you have like a whole thing about, finishing it at midnight, or doing one of those, the countdowns where it's like, if you start at this time, it'll end at exactly midnight, because you probably don't want to like your final thing. Although maybe if you watch the Godfather Coda, the re-edit that Coppola did, it's supposed to be a little bit better, but doesn't fix the film. You might get a more satisfying ending, and you could time it so that it's not a spoiler for. I mean, it is a spoiler, but it's also the title for Godfather Coda: The Death of Michael Corleone. That you could time it so the death of Michael Corleone happens at midnight. Well, that could be fun, and watch the whole trilogy. I mean, that doesn't get more epic than watching 3 of the longest fucking movies. They're not. I mean, Lord of the Rings, which you did, they're really long. So, my name is Craig. Says, hey Richard, I really struggle to remember the names of the world's rainforests apart from the Amazon. Any tips? This is a reference to Craig and I did a pub quiz, which I can't remember if I updated you guys on, but the pub quiz Craig and I did together, we where I go back to the Harry Potter episode to hear the whole story, but we won. We went back and we won, and we didn't have any points deducted. So it was like, what's the second largest rainforest in the world? And we just had no idea. It was like, I couldn't name you a single other rainforest. Who out there can name what it is? It's the Congo rainforest. And looking at it's like literally like the Amazon rainforest makes up 50% of like all rainforests, and then the Congo is like 10%. So that's the kind of number we're dealing with. So yeah, I don't think that's that shameful. But also, there's like Australasia, Sunderland, Indo-Burma. I guess we got that. Loading ... has asked, "Hey Richard, how has Barbie changed your life for the better?" This is actually an interesting question because we've talked about this a few times on the podcast, but like I love being an expert in, and I wouldn't even call myself an expert actually, but like knowing these really obscure franchises. And it's funny as well now, like my work gets a lot of just sort of, you know, like 20-year-old just graduating girls coming out of you know, having studied, and it is I love talking to them about Barbie films, and they're like, oh my god, I grew up with them, and then flipping the script and it's like, I know more about them than you do. And you know, it sounds like I'm just, you know, bragging about knowing stuff, which I am, but I do. Yeah, I love having these like obscure knowledges of things, or when someone makes a joke about Godzilla, being like, "Oh, actually, you know, that's probably that's actually reference to this." And there's some great stuff in those Barbie movies. There's some great stuff in those Godzilla movies, and like all these sort of big franchises. That it's so funny to be able to. It's so funny to me to be able to reference those things, and like 90% of the jokes I make are just for myself, and I think people don't get that enough. Some of my favorite ones that you can try out for yourself. I think I've said this on the podcast before, but when you ask someone what the time is and they say, "Oh, it's 5," you go o'clock. Like you want to clarify if they mean 5 o'clock, and the funny thing is they will go, "Yeah," because in their mind you've asked a question like AM or PM, which, you know, would warrant clarification sometimes. Most of the time you can tell if it's morning or night, but so it's this funny thing, and you know, because they're just going to walk away from that thinking, "Oh yeah, they just asked a clock. I clarified it. Simple interaction." But no, it was a weird interaction. You made it weird, and they don't know. Scotty can open doors now. Says, "Hey Strongbad, can you draw a dragon? I want to see your skills of an artist," which is a reference to I'm sorry, which is something I grew up on, and if you didn't, you absolutely missed out. I grabbed a wine glass for my fucking. It's got some fucking bullshit in it. My stubby little fingers can't reach to clean out the bottom of the wine glass. If only I had a better dishwasher, and I think dishwashers will come up later on. So I'm gonna just gonna run and get another wine glass. Sorry, AJ, you can cut this out. You can fucking add a little addendum if you want. Actually, don't. Yeah, gotta have a clean glass when you're drinking mead. A drink which I'm only trying because there's one of my favorite TikToks. I'll find the account later. I may as well find the account. But this guy, it's like Fringe Guy Wants to Talk. It is like the sketch, and it's just kind of a weird dude. And he says, "Doth my liege need more mead?" And it's really funny. AlmostFriday.tv. Fringe Guy sketches. They're very funny. Oh, fuck. I rushed up and down the stairs, and now I'm out of breath, and now I can't open the bottle. There we go. All right, mead. Ooh, that is an interesting smell. So if you don't know what mead is, according to the back of the bottle, it's a wine fermented with honey instead of grapes. So discover the luscious floral honey and citrus nuances of mead, and then brackets honey wine. Goes with. Savor this wine with meals that call for a sweeter sauce, like duck, honey glazed lamb, pork with cranberry, or oriental dishes. Pouring my first ever glass of mead. It's a lovely color. It almost looks like a very light kind of Scotch or whiskey. But yeah, anyway, I didn't really finish the Strong Bad thing. Yeah, Homestar Runner. Whew, what a great cartoon! It was like a web series, and this guy would answer Strong Bad, who was like wear a Mexican wrestler mask and boxing gloves. He would answer emails, and similar to what I'm doing now. And the most famous kind of one of that is he drew a dragon named the Dragon Trogdor. It's a very good episode. I would recommend checking it out. So here we go, Mead. It's a very smooth. Oh my god, that is sweet. That is very sweet. I mean, yeah, fucking hell. It's like a syrup consistency. Any Mead fans in the drop an F in the chat if you like Mead. The F stands for fucking love Mead. Yeah, no, that's a really interesting flavor. I want to talk to other Mead fans about Mead. A term for which tonight I thought only meant just generic fancy alcohol from olden days. And our next caller, Hitty School Musicals, is hi Richard. I mean, this has 9 heart reacts and 8 what do you call it? Oscar reacts. So very popular comment. I went to this really lame New Year's Eve party on a family holiday, and they made me do karaoke. TBH, I kind of felt put on the spot, but when I started singing, I realized I'm actually a really good singer, and the girl I was singing with was really good too, and she was hot, so I asked for a number, and she put my number in her phone, and then she just ran off. I couldn't stop thinking about her, and I don't know, just thinking about singing and stuff. Anyway, I went back to school after the holiday, and she was there at the same school. Basically, she'd moved schools. I couldn't believe it. We ended up auditioning for the school play, and everyone at school just went nuts because singing is like not the sort of thing I normally do. I'm actually the main guy on the basketball team, but it's so much pressure because my dad is the coach and he really wants me to do basketball. But the hot girl wants me to be in the play with her. I love basketball. But now I also love musical theatre. I was going to go to college to do basketball, but now I might change to do musical theatre. But then I'd be letting my dad down. How do I choose between basketball and musical theatre? Well, Hitty, this is a really good question. And I can see why I got so many heart and Oscar reacts. I think what you should do, and I want to try to relate this back to films because this is a film podcast after all. But there's a little film out there which might help you out. You might see a lot of yourself in it. It's called Grease. The plot beats are really similar to what you're going through. And I think what Grease taught us is that you can sing your problems away. And I think that, like, genuinely, even outside of this, I think singing, even just lip sync, I fucking love lip syncing, just like having a good, like, rock out. And that's how I really, like, de-stress. So I reckon sing your cares away and see if there is a good school that has both. A good college, I should say. This Hitty sounds American. Ugh. Drop an F in the chat, boys who love mead. Chugging the mead. See if you can find a school that has both. I mean, I don't know how American school works. I don't think you just have like basketball schools, but maybe. Bless my dog, Redux says, "Hey Richard, I used to have an uncle named Richard. I so frequently get told, like, people ask about, what's, what do people say about your name and all this stuff? And like, I used to obviously get like about Dick and stuff like that. Like people would ask me if my name meant Dick. The thing I get more than anything else is, oh, my dad's name is Richard. So yeah, I'm a young Richard, but not for long. I'm being withered away by father time. So yeah, Bless My Dog says, "Hi, I used to have an uncle named Richard, but unfortunately he passed away from cancer a few years back. Sorry to hear that." It sounded sarcastic, but I'm sorry to hear that. A few months before he died, I asked him a question. In response, he stared at me blankly and responded in a very serious tone. No one has ever said that to me. So now I will ask you, another Richard, the question I once bequeathed to my dear late uncle. Now, he spoiler marked this, and I haven't read it yet, so... He says, "Has anyone in your life ever referred to you as Dick? If so, how did you feel about it? Do you feel that it's unquestionably," another spoiler mark, "the worst nickname for people named Richard, or is there something worse? Thanks." Well, I mean, I'm glad I brought that up then. But so for fucking years, like I grew up hating my name, and like in primary school, so many people would ask me if I know my name means Dick, and the thing is, it's like, it's one thing to say, haha, your name means dick. It's another to ask me if I fucking know that. Of course I do. I go to primary school or whatever, grade school, like in America. And kids are cruel. Kids are dicks. And yeah, no pun intended. But in terms of, I've kind of been, I always, like, throughout high school, I always, like, if I came up with a nickname for someone, somehow it would just stick. I don't know why. But then people would always say, oh, I'm going to start calling you XYZ. And it's like, I'm just not going to answer to that if you call me that. Like, and so I've never really had a nickname stick for me. In my life, I've had a handful of people call me Rich. And nowadays, if I'm signing off an email, I'll just say cheers, Rich, at the end of it, especially if it's like second or third email in. But no one's ever like really committed to only calling me Dick. There's a guy at work who's like quite a well-respected journalist who calls me Dicko or Cocko, but it's like he's a sports journalist, and if you live in New Zealand, it's Andrew Saville. But he, I don't know. It's one of those things. It's very much a term of endearment from him, kind of thing. And I these days I don't really have a problem with it. I have a problem with when people still ask me, "Hey, did you know your name means Dick?" And like that's the thing that really grinds my gears, because it's like, oh, congratulations, you're as smart as the children in my primary school. I have also kind of, in the same way that I've sort of started to just really embrace being called Rich. I'm trying to climb back Dick, you know. I like Dick Martin. It's like not that bad of a name. I'm like, yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's it's obviously dated, just the idea of abbreviating a name to Dick, but it's something that I think, you know, we can all grow out of. Luke said that was weirdly close to the question they were forming in their mind. Was the coin rigged? Josh says, hey Richard, my podcast host is sick this week and I am unsure what to do. Should I do an impromptu Q&A? Should I use the archive and make a soundboard of him and fake his responses? Well, don't do that. I think the impromptu Q&A is a good idea. And Mead boys, you know who you are. Let me know if this was a good idea. And Mead girls. Anyone who likes Mead or has had Mead and wants to leave their thoughts on Mead, you know where to do it. Join the Discord if you're not in there already. Luke says, Richard, how do I soft boil an egg? I'm just straight up going to Google this. I've never been good at boiling. I can tell you how to boil the fuck out of an egg, and you just leave it in there, and then it does. Cooking time for soft boiled eggs is 3 to 4 minutes. The thing, though, is that do you put it in cold water and bring it to the boil? Now you want it in a rolling boil, not refrigerated eggs, and then drop them in. It's I haven't boiled eggs are one of those things. I see a boiled egg and I think gross, but then if I eat a boiled egg, I'm like, that's fat. Whilst the coin rig, Josh says, Richard, how many pairs of shorts and pants should I own? I only have 2 pairs of shorts right now. It feels like too few. I have exactly 1 pair of pants. I think at a stretch I could. Well, I have 2 pairs of pants, but I only really wear 1. And shorts, I think I have a couple. Like, I have lounging around the house shorts. I have like quite comfortable, like basketball shorts, I guess you'd call them. And some that I wouldn't necessarily wear out of the house. Some of them don't have pockets and stuff like that, so they're not really convenient. But yeah, the big one for me though is shoes. I never have any fucking shoes. My shoes at the moment, my go-to shoes, because I have 1 pair of shoes and I wear it until they're destroyed, and then I buy another pair of shoes. It's something that I've never really gotten to the point where I've invested that much. I need is like 3 or 4 like good pairs of shoes that I can rotate, and then they'll all last a lot longer. And a bit more cheese added. I was going to ask the correct number of socks one should own. I have a lot of socks, and what, like if you're just starting your own sock collection for some reason, or you want us to restart your sock collection, I would say just go out and buy 10 pairs of the same white socks, 10 pairs of the same black socks, and just have that. Like, I have so many like quirky pattern socks, and I do love them, and I have like my favorite ones, and they all feel slightly different as well. So sometimes I don't feel like one, but a lot of them have holes in them as well, and I always forget that my job involves going into people's houses a lot, and then I have to take my shoes off, and one of my big toes is just sticking right the fuck out. And so yeah, Yeah, so socks, I would stick to plain, maybe a few pairs, but also there's the fun thing that if you have 10 pairs of white socks and 10 pairs of black socks, if you pick up 3 socks, no matter what, you have a pair right there in the dark. In there, if you would pick, yeah, it's an old riddle. Look it up. Was kind of Rick Josh again asks, also a good question, referring to Bit More Cheese's edition. Richard, my favorite podcast host may have rigged a coin flip to get the outcome he wanted. Should I confront him about on Discord? Now, I'm going to not play along here, and I'm going to just break the veneer. I think what was the coin rigged, Josh is referring to me here, judging by the name. Was the coin rigged? It's clearly something that he is actually passionate about. But I'm very flattered that you'd call me your favorite podcast host. That's incredible. I always feel like I'm very much the second fiddle. So it's good. It's fun that it's like, because there's 2 episodes now that I've recorded by us because I did the continue the franchise greatest hits at the start of last year. So it's like this weird thing like Malcolm in the Middle, who like where like Reese and Hal, I think, are the only characters who appear in every episode. Like not even Malcolm. I know I'm not on the first episode. There's an episode that Rowan did. Rowan and AJ did without me. But I think if you were to go back through every episode of the Cop Popture podcast, I'm in more episodes than AJ, which I find weird. So I don't know how you guys feel about it. But I'm going to be honest, I think it would have been funnier to learn Fantastic Beasts. So if I were to have rigged it, we would not be covering Jurassic Park. So, yeah. sorry to be a buzzkill. Was the coin rig Josh also photoshopped Solo, a Richard Martin podcast, which is very fun. And I can't remember what the photo he used for that is from of me. Luke says, hi Richard, how do you go to the beach by yourself without worrying someone will steal your stuff? Speaking from personal experience, I hate the beach. I don't like going to the beach. Which is like, I could lose my citizenship in New Zealand if that got out. And yeah, I think what you would do, like, I can't imagine why you'd ever go to the beach by yourself personally, but there's certain things you can do. There's a lot of stuff about, like, you know, burying things inside other things and making things look unappealing, which you shouldn't have to do. But I mean, as much as you can, always keep an eye on your gear. Like, never get out of sight of whatever you're leaving back on the beach. And I mean, if you I generally probably wouldn't be brave enough. But if there's like a family, they'd be like, hey, would you mind if I just leave my stuff next to you guys? And it's not even like, can you keep an eye on it? It's like, someone's not going to come steal it if it's right next to you, you know? Because if you're just like, hey, do you mind if I leave my stuff here? That they don't feel the same kind of responsibility. Whereas, like, if you were like, hey, can you look after my stuff? But just be friendly to people. That's really my biggest advice for life. Greg from the Kingdom of Sleep says, hi Richard, I wanted to watch a movie with my partner that she hadn't seen in a long time, and we agreed to make time for it. Soon after we discussed it, I saw her watching the movie on Discord with her internet and friends. Friends instead, so do I leave her now? What? That really that really grinds my gears. My partner is quite bad at watching stuff without me. In her defense, I'm quite bad at watching stuff. So, you know, I'll be like, no, I really want to watch this TV show, or whatever, and then it'll be a week or two will pass, and I'm like, oh, should we check out the first episode? And she's already watched the whole thing. So I haven't left her yet. And yeah, I mean, that is a bummer. And like honestly, like if you just say like, because I think a lot of times that, you know, people don't realize, and we're all guilty of this, but we don't realize how much things actually mean to other people. So, you know, for your partner, it might have just been like, oh yeah, we sort of said we'd do this, but Greg, you might have thought that this was like, you know, you planned a date with your partner. And I think just be honest and say, hey, you know, like I'm really bummed that you watched that. It was like I was really excited to do that together. And I mean, yeah, communication is just in any relationship is the key, and being honest with your feelings. There's times when, you know, we're going through a rough patch, or it's, you know, one of us has done something that upsets the other one, and you just say like, I'm sorry, I just need to be upset with you for a little bit, and it's like, you know, or I will just go off to the bedroom, or I'll put on a movie, I'll start playing a game, And it's like, yes, so do you mind if I just sort of, blow off some steam, buy myself a little bit. In 15 minutes time, I'm going to have forgotten about this. But just be honest. And if you hold on to resentment, it's only going to get worse because you're feeding it. It's like what I said at the start. You're feeding the anger. Dan on the bus goes around and around. Says, Dear Richard, and then this is spoiler marked. Says, I don't have a question. Just want to thank you for doing this and for your podcasts. You're an excellent host and a wonderful person. And it's great to see you find success. That is very kind, Dan. That is very sweet. And you know what? I needed to hear that. It has 6 AJ reacts, which is very fun. But that truly means a lot, Dan. Thank you very much. Zek, regrettably from England, not a great time to be from England, says, Richard, I severely want to ask a question, but every time I write something, I'm faced with crippling anxiety. Any help? Also, what's the meaning life? 42 is the meaning of life. Being faced with crippling anxiety every time you write something is like, you just gotta just trust your instincts, Yeah, it's hard, and you want to, especially if you're doing something like that where you're regularly putting yourself out there, you want to be the kind of person who encourages other people when they put themselves out there, and then hopefully it'll be reciprocated. But then you also have the worry of looking like someone who doesn't need reassurance. I, for example, need constant reassurance. So that's why Dan's comment is going to get me through the rest of this podcast. And but I act like I don't need it, but I do. So yeah, I would say, just trust your instincts and do unto others as you would do, and to do unto yourself. Mike Noyes says, Hey Richard, my friend has an upcoming advice column type podcast and I'm having trouble thinking of a question. Could you give me a couple of good suggestions of questions I might ask him? Thanks. Why don't you just fucking blow smoke up his ass like Dan did? I really Ben Close, who was Skippy Williamson, the watch list, I think that was great. The movie review, I enjoyed telling you guys that story. And I think just those are good. I mean, anything that gets them thinking, or and it's like doing, if you see it as like an interview, it's like everyone has their dozens of stories. So just ask something that is going to set off that story. Zek says, no way, my friend's doing that too. Can I get some advice as well? Well, you just got it. Bree from Michigan says, how many times can/should you wear jeans before washing them? I always wore them once before sending them through the wash like I do with all clothing, but then friends said that you're supposed to wear them multiple times before washing, and I never even considered that as an option. Thanks. This is interesting. Lucas said it's a real argument that happens with me and Amanda, and then my wife emoji. Micah said, I never wash my jeans unless they get really dirty, like muddy or something. That's a. I'm sorry. I'm siding with Mike here. And this is gross because I've already admitted to only really owning one pair of pants. I wear my jeans every day, and then it gets to a point where they will start to smell, and then I will think, "Fuck, I've got to wash these," and then I get stuck in a situation where I've got no other pants to wear, and. Someone I think later down feels I replied to this. Oh yeah, Rachel Weir, the collective said, hey Richard, following up on the other jeans question, what are your thoughts on washing jeans in the ocean? Luke said what? And Dan said addendum, what about putting denim jeans in the freezer? This is blowing up. So I've never heard about washing jeans in the ocean. I'm gonna Google that, see if I get any results. But the freezing jeans thing is interesting. Yeah, apparently it is. It is a real thing. It's supposed to like give you a good fade, washing your jeans, but it's supposedly a myth. So I'm fascinated by that. I mean, I know Rachel lives in Hawaii, so I wonder if this is more of like when your entire. I mean, New Zealand's very beach heavy as well, but when I'm sure in Hawaii you can't get too far away from a beach. In New Zealand, I don't think you can get more than 2 hours away from a beach. But the freezer thing is interesting because that's not because it kills the bacteria, supposedly. And I have noticed there have been times when I've noticed my jeans start to smell a bit sweaty or whatever. I chuck them in the freezer overnight just to sort of try it, and they don't smell, but then the smell comes back in like 3 days. And I'm not talking about like, they're reeking. I'm talking about like Jess is lying with her head in my lap or something like that. And she's going, these jeans smell like dick. But, and by that she means I sound like Richard. My natural musk. Drop an F, drop an M for musk and mead. Mead fans. Take a sip of mead every time I say mead. Oh fuck, that's two. Cheese said, "Dear Richard, how you feel about the Die Hard franchise?" Betrayed. Scrolling down. Volashaka said, "How do I ask better questions?" I think you've answered your own question there. Oh, damn. Lucas said, "How does one get a healthy perspective?" Which I think actually ties into... I'm going to come... Because I sort of answered that with like Kieran's question right at the top, but there's another one that's going to sort of tie into that as well, so I'll come back to that. Vinny Redux said, "Where do babies come from?" I don't know. Ask your mum. Oh! Bitmore Cheese asks, "When do our questions have to be in by?" Right now, because I'm recording the episode. My name is Craig. Hey Richard, a good friend of mine had an embarrassing experience where they soiled themselves at a party before leaving. They're in denial about the entire thing, and I'm worried that they won't be able to move on from it until they accept that it happened. Any advice? I think that, again, XOXO Craig, hugs and kisses. So, I would say, Craig, you're really just going to have to confront your friend. Maybe on a public Discord forum, and just say, look, let's call the friend AJ. Look, AJ, I know that you soiled yourself and then left a party. We're not here to judge you. I think make that really clear that you're not. This isn't a judgment thing. It's more about it. It's a seeking help thing. Arrange the chairs in a semicircle as well. That always works. Scotty Can Open Doors now says, "When stacking cutlery in the dishwasher, do you stack it pointy side up or down?" This is such a fucking pet peeve of mine. Pointy side down. I've cut myself before when someone put a knife sticking out. It's insane to me that you wouldn't put it pointy side down. Also, do you leave the door open when done to dry the dishes? That's not something I'd heard before, but I would say generally speaking, I never really need something immediately out of the dishwasher. It's usually that I'll put it on overnight and then I'll finish overnight, so it's kind of done by the morning. Do you turn it off when it's done cleaning so others know not to put dirty dishes in? No. So yeah, I wouldn't say. I mean, it usually just turns off, I think. Or do you run a post-it note type situation? No, I mean it's just me and my partner in my flat. So there's it's like you can tell if it's empty or clean in there. Pods or powder? Generally pods these days, I would say. If pods, then do you use less eco-friendly ones so they actually clean the dishes, thus saving you water by not having to clean twice? Yeah, the ones with I don't know if this is an American thing as well, but the Powerball is fucking gives such a nice shine. And I lived in a place without a dishwasher for a year and I fucking hated it because it was like nothing was ever actually clean. And now I have nice, shiny mead glasses for my mead. Oh, that's good mead. Also, you're aware that most dishwashers have a hidden function where you can raise and lower the height of the top tray. Love to hear your thoughts on this. I'm going to test that myself. My current one, the tray, the height difference between the two trays is less than the width of our plates. So I have to put the plates folded, not folded over, but leaning, which is really annoying. So Ryan from Florida, this is the question that links up to Luke's question earlier about getting a healthy perspective. Hey Richard, what is your best advice with escaping burnout / feeling like you're in a rut? I work a 9 to 5 and I don't feel like I spend any of my free time productively, mainly because I work a computer / desk job all day, and when I get home, being at my computer is the last thing I want to do. I've kind of just been coasting on autopilot for the last year plus, and it's feeling hard to escape it. I could use some advice on better ways to be productive and better myself. This is a great question, and this is something that so many people struggle with, and myself included. And speaking about the roles I talked about at the start that I've held at my job. I remember when I was in Newstrip, which is a very at the time it was exactly what I needed. That it was a job I could come in and leave at work and not take home with me, emotionally. But I still had the podcast as a creative outlet, and it was so important to me that I I still felt like I was being fulfilled creatively. And then it got to the point where I was like, I actually need this creativity in my work life as well. And so I guess like part of this like feeling like you're in a rut is really trying really hard to identify what it is that's actually making you feel like you're trapped in a rut. You know, like I spoke about this already, but like when I got back from China, I felt really, really like burnt out and like I was in a rut, and taking stock of your life and really trying to get to the core of what do you actually want, which is it's actually such a hard question to answer. And the different types of goals, or like different types of what you would be doing if your life was at different places, that is such a good way to work out what it is you want. And, you know, because some people it's like, oh, I just want to travel. And it's like, okay, well, you know, go on little holidays, just, you know, it's somewhere that's Ryan lives in Florida. I don't know much about how long it takes, but, you know, just go across state lines and stay for a weekend or something like that. And these are still trips, and then, you know, you can do them for pretty cheap with just by yourself or with a partner, and then save up for things. And then every time you've always got something to look forward to like that. And it breaks up that like feeling like you're in a rut, because you feel like, you know, something's coming, and you always kind of feel like the rut's coming to an end. I mean, it sort of conflicts a little bit with what I said at the start about finding the joy and the mundanity of life. I mean, and that is still good advice for escaping burnout, but yeah, I mean, really just try and take stock of life. The other thing I would absolutely recommend, antidepressants, SSRIs. Yeah, coincidentally, I started taking antidepressants the same day that I did my first movie review. So it was actually like, I mean, it's clearly coincidence, but people asked how it's going, and it's like, well, my life also just got way better at the time I started taking them. So, yeah, it's hard to say, you know, if it's a self-fulfilling thing or if it was like they assist each other. But I would say, yeah, just being able, and also being able to accept opportunities when they come. Because, you know, 6 months ago, I don't think I would be where I am now in my career, because I would have doubted myself, and I still do doubt myself, but I just have to do the work. But yeah, work out what it is you actually want. And I mean, yeah, like hobbies are so. I think I know for a fact Ryan that Ryan has a dog, and so, or a cat maybe, and like I found like getting 2 cats most fucking fulfilling. Actually, I did it a year ago. Yesterday. I'm so excited to tomorrow. Sorry, so excited to spend my anniversary with my cats tomorrow. But it is hard, and ruts do pass. I find a funny thing that they happen for me like every 10 weeks, and it's, you know, the same amount of time as a school term, and it's like, yeah, that school terms are perfectly where they need to be, and the school holiday breaks. Yeah, I would also say I know you said that, like, being at the computer is the last thing you want to do. I like, you find what does bring you joy. And like I said, it might be travel, it might be going out for walks, just spending quality time with your partner, and or if you have a partner or whatever. But yeah, I think find a hobby that's not related to what you do for a living, because it is also, hobbies are really fun to start. They're like kind of, they can be kind of annoying to keep, but I find the best part of a hobby is getting all the new equipment and things like that. You have this like really sort of exciting phase. But yeah, just plan out, I don't know, the next year of your life. Like, what goals do you have to work towards? And then you can maybe see a way out of the rut. The Almighty Watch, he suggests trying new things to that. That's all the questions. Oh, damn. There's a bit more discussion. Luke asked, why would opening the door dry dishes? Almighty Watch says, in fact, some fancy dishwashers will crack open when done to release the steam. And yeah, Scotty says, just the airflow through the kitchen. It's like drip drying hand dishes, only on a larger scale. And yeah, that's all the questions we had. We put out on our social medias, and I don't think we got many responses on Instagram. Something called Reality Records insisted I promote myself on there, and some people on our Instagram story misunderstood the brief. And we post on Facebook as well. We don't really use Facebook anymore because hashtag fuck the Zuck. Hashtag not in a sexual way. Hashtag Mead Boys rise up. Keep in mind, anyone can be a Mead Boy. Ryan is typing. Ryan has stopped typing. So Ryan, I just gave you a long. I mean, I hope that was helpful. I hope this podcast was enjoyable to listen to. I hope you got your fix of some laughs. I hope we had some laughs. It feels weird to talk for this long without hearing laughter. Yeah, I just heard that in my head as well. And I hope that, even if you got just a little piece of advice out of this, even if it's just go and try some mead because it's very sweet. Or some, if you can get your hands on some number 8 wire, which is a very Kiwi term, so it's probably only in New Zealand. 8 wired, double scoop stout, baklava flavored. I've also got a chocolate cream lager in the fridge, which I'll be keen to try. Damn, that's a good stout. All right. Yeah, so AJ usually does the wrap up, so I'm lost. But so follow us on Cult Popture everywhere. That's like your Twitter, Instagram, whatever you want, and check out this wherever you're listening to this. We've got a bunch more episodes. Most of them have this other guy, AJ. You'll love him. He's in them. And subscribe to us on YouTube. There's Cult Popture and Cult Popture Again, second YouTube channel, which might be where you're listening to this. And you can also email us at cultpopturemedia@gmail.com. This has been, I actually don't even know what this episode's going to be called. Richard's Advice Column, or something. I don't know. AJ will probably come up with the title and the thumb and the general sort of decor of the episode. But stick around after the music you're probably hearing, just a little light music underneath. Stick around after that for a post-credit scene where I will be answering a question. Won't that be a fun change of pace from what the rest of the episode has been? And here's the post-credit scene. Welcome along to the post-credits. This is the scene at the end of each episode. We're for $5 a month over at patreon.com/cultpopture. You can give us something to talk about in the post-credits scene. How was that, AJ? I hope you enjoyed that. Sam Page says, if you went back in time, what would you have done differently with Cult Popture? Wouldn't have joined. There's your answer. No, I think AJ and I have both sort of said like we would love to have gotten into Cult Popture when it was like a few years earlier. Like we always sort of felt like we just sort of missed the boat on becoming a big podcast because like it seems like the only real podcasts that blow up these days have like a celebrity name attached to them. Like a lot of podcasts people listen to have been going for 7 or 8 years, and it feels like if we'd started maybe 3 years earlier or something like that. We could be the my dad wrote a porno or my brother and me or something like that. Yeah, I guess that would be it. Just starting earlier with the podcast. But then I've said this multiple times that I was at one stage in my life where the one stage in my life where I would have agreed to start this podcast and actually follow through with it. So, and that's led to me to where I am now, which is that I'm a fucking movie reviewer on the national news, and I can drink mead and stouts for an hour and 10 minutes and ramble madly by myself. And joke's on you because you listened to the whole thing if you made it to this point. Love you. Bye.